you plant your feet so firmly in the ground that you're not willing to bend. And like, if you don't bend, you break, right? It's like there's a good thing in flexibility. So it's just being willing to change, just having that confidence in yourself that you're not always right, which is, I think, one of the hardest things for all of us to ever do.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Multifamily X podcast, Masters of Maintenance. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors for making this broadcast possible. They are Kairos, Water, and AppWork. With this being said, let's go to our guest today. Our guest today is Jake Strait. Welcome to the show, Jake.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Jake is a multi-site maintenance supervisor for Thrive Communities. Jake, let's start by introducing yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about your background and about your journey in multifamily.
I have been in it for now close to 18 years, believe it or not. I think you kind of get to that point in life when you start getting into those like 20-year marks. You're like, oh man, I started as groundskeeper with Equity Residential way back in the day. Equity was kind of the king dog out there, and that just kind of set my career path forward. I grew to a service supervisor and then kind of floated around to different things. I've had my chance to be property manager on a small, like 64 unit community, and I've leased at a 60 or a 540 unit community. And then now I'm currently overseeing maintenance at around 864 units, I believe, for Thrive as a multi-site. So I've kind of done a little bit of everything.
Jake, this is very interesting. It's not a common path for maintenance professionals. So you did management and then you switched to maintenance. Mm-hmm. Why is that choice? Typically, I'm seeing a few other stories, but they're kind of the other way around. They're starting in maintenance and they switch to the management side of things. Your trajectory was like the other way around. You started on the management side and then you moved to the maintenance side.
It was kind of a weird dip or however you want to call it. So I started as a groundskeeper, grew to a service supervisor, and then I had an opportunity with a friend, one of the best managers I've ever worked with. He had a position for me in leasing, and we'd always talked about bringing me over to that side of it. So I jumped over to do that. There was a small interim where it was about 4.5 months where we didn't have a manager on a 64 unit community. And it was, the company I worked for was a little bit archaic. It was still like the old manual green sheets where you had to physically write everything out and stuff. It was all good experiences on that, just to know more about the industry.
Jake, you manage both small and large assets, smart communities. How did the challenges and strategies differ from a 64-unit property to a 540-unit property? What makes managing those differently?
Definitely the smaller communities sometimes think are a bit harder in a sense because I think you have to keep everybody more happy more of the time. It's a smaller, tight-knit community and everybody knows everybody. So you definitely have to be under your game. We all have to be, but with fair housing aspects and stuff, because, it tends to end up being where you become more friendly with people. So it's like, you have to make sure you stay on the right path on the 64 unit communities. I think it's a lot easier to fear there because you become closer to people. Kind of 40 unit communities and stuff, it's just the difference there is the quantity that just comes in. But it's what I thrive in. I love chaos on that sense of things. Control chaos is my element where I thrive best. So just having all those consistent phone calls and always another problem to solve, that part is the challenging part that made it fun for me. But it's just, I'll say, the quantity on the large communities. It's all the same. We all learn something new every day, but it's the quantity on the larger properties.
Jake, how did your experience in different roles from leasing to supervising to be a maintenance supervisor shape your approach to property management and maintenance specifically?
It's the understanding of both roles that really helps. I think what definitely has propelled my career in this way is for any maintenance guy, if you get out there, take the time to go lease a unit. Ask if you can get that cross-training, because I've known a lot of guys in the past, and I used to be one too, where the leasing team would come out, they would punch through units, and you took it from this hellhole to this apartment that looks decent, but they still are kind of picking apart those little details and stuff. So when it comes to those punch lists and stuff, it's once you go lease a unit and you're walking with a customer, they're kind of picking it out, or you feel like you're constantly kind of shuffling around as you're standing in front of a hole in a wall or staining a carpet or something like that. It gives you a new perspective on what your teammates are dealing with in that sense. In so many different cases, it kind of feels like we're divided roles from maintenance to management because we do kind of focus on different areas. But it's really nice to understand that feeling. Being able to do the leasing part of it, it just really opened my eyes to that. And then it makes you more successful in your maintenance role because now you're hitting those things for your leasing team that were important to you at the time, and now they're covered for them. And it completely changes that aspect. It's understanding somebody's role is so important. And that's why, even though I didn't do it for very long, even being a part of that small community to manage it was like understanding that role of what your responsibilities are, as a manager and stuff, and understanding in the end, defer to your managers and stuff because they're the last call. In the end, they're the one the weight comes down on. So I've learned to defer in the end when they have something that I always I joke with my team. This is just a Jake thing. It might not be necessarily that I've experienced this somewhere and I have a reason why I'm saying this. And managers and everybody in this industry has that. It's like, I've experienced this before. It might not make sense to you, but can you give me this one? It's Jake. Being a part of all those different roles just opens your eyes. And I highly suggest it to anybody to venture out, even if it's just for 6 months. Take a different role. And I think that's what's so fun about our industry is like you can jump around easily for the most part. And trust me, from a maintenance perspective, if you go do leasing for a little while and you decide you want to go back to maintenance, you're 100% going to have a job there available for you somewhere because maintenance is always a dying need.
Jake, being on both sides of the business, management, being a manager, also being now a manager on the service side, what are some pieces of advice that you would give to a property manager that doesn't have that experience like you did, doesn't have like both sides, a crash course, if you wish?
I think this is important life advice in general. You're never going to know everything, and it's okay not to know everything. Always be willing to ask questions. I will tell you, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So making sure you build those relationships and having the right people to call to get something done 100% will sell you through this industry. Because again, everybody can't know everything. It will be knowledge that you have to take with you next time. And not everybody can make every single repair. But the nice thing is knowing that the depths of like your contact list in your cell phone, I am telling you, that is like such a way to make a difference in the industry. And just like, it's the biggest piece of advice I can say.
Jake, you're actively involved with several industry organizations. And I want to mention here Washington Multifamily Housing Association and also NAA. And also the facilities leadership group that I've started, and you're an active part of that group, which I'm grateful that you are. And I look forward to doing great things together for the industry. How have these affiliations influenced your professional growth and your contributions to the industry?
I would definitely say, sadly, with the WMFA, it was always around. I did not know what it could provide in that sense. And I really wish that I would say now, go out to your local organizations if you're going to be within this industry. Because there's so many resources. And it goes back to my last statement. There are so many knowledgeable people that sit on all of these different boards. You end up developing that depth on your cell phone or your contact list, our Rolodex, it's just that those contacts are so meaningful. I don't make myself successful. I can build relationships, but it's like the people around me that have always made me successful. Being a part of WMFA is nice. I'm on the career development committee. Career development committee itself is just seeking out to train people to make sure that people who have the credentials, like the CAMT and everything like that, everybody gets recognized for that. And then the growth and development of just our industry. Housing associations have been really good for us. And I think we need to just input more to them as our teams, like on the site with our companies and stuff. And I've done less with, it's mostly just for to train the trainer and stuff like that. I would definitely say if you can teach people your job.
Work environments could be a very challenging topic of conversation. In general, I'm hearing a lot of maintenance professionals pointing at the fact that the work environments that they're part of are not the most friendliest with them. It's important for us, for leaders in the industry, to create that type of work environment where people feel good to be a part of and they don't feel like they had to drag their feet in the morning, every morning to get to work because they just need a paycheck. Can you share some initiatives, programs, or ideas that you have or you've been a part of that have made a significant impact in creating better work environments?
Creating a better environment. And it's what I really appreciate about Thrive, because it's definitely, they're a very people-forward company, which is super, super important. You have to love where you come to work every single day. In an industry where there's so many opportunities and stuff, it is important. I had a challenge with my team too, and this is fresh on my mind right now too, is just making sure that you can have conversations with people so you know where you stand. There was one thing that I've always been lucky that I've been able to do is take something that I didn't like about some position or wherever it was at, or like some way I was treated. I internalize that in a good way. I hold that close to the heart of the things that I did not like, because any teams that I work with, I just always make sure that never comes out of my mouth or those actions never happen. So creating that better work environment to me is like taking the things you didn't like, because most people won't like them, and never allowing them to like trickle downhill. My dad always said, just don't let crap go downhill. You should be the one to stop it. And it always sucks to do that part of it too, because you're the one wearing all the creating it just starts with you and just making sure you're that good workplace.
Jake, you've been around for almost 2 decades in multifamily. The industry has seen many changes over the years. How have you adapted to these changes, and what strategies have you found the most effective over the years to apply, helping you be successful?
I think that's actually the most fun about our industry is nothing really ever seems to be the same. I think there's always something that's changing that either can make it harder or make it easier. We're in Seattle over here, so definitely the changing climate here can, on the side of being as a property manager, it can be a little bit more rough because it seems like a lot of the laws and things they put into place are for good, but it tends to limit the things we can actually do for people. It's kind of like a catch-22 on that end. Again, it's knowing your resources, making relationships where you learn and be willing to change. I think so many of the people we work with and stuff, you plant your feet so firmly in the ground that you're not willing to bend. And like, if you don't bend, you break, right? It's like there's a good thing in flexibility. So it's just being willing to change, just having that confidence in yourself that you're not always right, which is, I think, one of the hardest things for all of us ever.
And now a word from Dean Fungawing, founder and CEO, Kairos.
Another solution, which is our HVAC sort of monitoring solution that we have. We've been testing this for years. The problem with HVAC monitoring is that, again, these HVAC systems were like $1,500 HVAC systems to replace the whole stinking thing, right? So what we found out is that, a lot of folks don't want to spend money. They want to spend $1,000 on some complex solution that can tell you if it's the capacitor or the compressor or the fan coil, or you've got a short somewhere or some sensors on. We don't need all kinds of telematics on the HVAC system. You need to know, what is the condition of the air returning to the HVAC system? What is the humidity in the environment? What is my temperature split? What is my cycle runtime? Is it too short? Is it short cycling because you oversized an HVAC system? Or is it running optimally? Did the resident turn it off for 48 hours or more and the humidity is over 65%? These are data points that matter. And there's a simple solution, the same one that we use for the freeze protection package, the same one we use for the fire detection in the kitchen. All of that can be utilized also with the HVAC solution. Very simple. You can bolt it on. There's no additional OpEx expenses.
Jay, COVID was a significant event worldwide and in our lives as well. Of course, multifamily made no exception. It's been affected by COVID as well. What are some changes that you've seen that COVID has made in the way we operate? And focus on the positive changes. I'm not leading you to an answer, but I think that Emmanuel, leaving the fact that a lot of people, a lot of families experience strategy, which is extremely heartbreaking and unfortunate. But then there were certain things that our industry has advanced because of the fact that we had to remove that one-on-one interaction because of the COVID. And there were certain things that did happen. Again, I can think of several, but I'd like for you to give your take on how did the industry get impacted by COVID.
COVID was rough. I think the outlying thing that was so great our end for COVID is like, man, there was a lot of people that didn't have work. And I would say the thing that I was so grateful for is there was not a single day that I did not still have a job to go to. In fact, it was one of the most prosperous times in my life because it really was like there was a lot of overtime. There was money to be made because like things still had to get done and nothing was easy at that point. So I think that's the light with our industry. For anybody looking for, you don't leave high school, you don't leave college thinking like, oh, I'm going to go into property management. It's not in there like that yet. For anybody out there looking for that job that might be listening to this that isn't a part of our industry, it's like we have job security. And that's one of the best things about that. And COVID really shed that light on that aspect. I mean, I never had a day off since I took, unless it was a day I wanted to take off. I never just had, because I grew up in construction on that aspect of things. So it was like, there was days where the job site was slow and they didn't need you there. So you might have a day off or something like that. Where here, it's just like every single day is, you always have something to come into, which is nice. So that I would say is the really shining light that I got from COVID from like our industry. And I feel like our industry changed it because I think it just showed that how adapting it is to what's going on because we still had to operate. We were one of those, essential workers at the time where there's still people always needed a place to live and people still needed to move within that time period. And like everything we did to adapt to just make business still work. I think our industry was very low key on just doing what we had to do to make business still continue. Hey, look, the multifamily industry has figured it out, sadly, but I definitely think we were we were feet on the ground that really showed that you could still work even in a pandemic situation. You just have to follow their rules this time.
Jake, we're known as one of the industry that spends the least amount of time training their people. What should training for maintenance look like in 2024 to you? If you were to build the ideal training programs and environment for multifamily maintenance, what would that look like? Describe it to us, please.
I will say definitely for maintenance, I think it's getting to the point where we're taken a little bit more seriously. And as you kind of see our industry, the wages are growing and everything like that, which is nice. An electrician where we have to have a license. We're not a plumber where we have to have a license, or an HVAC person, but we do manage and take care of all of these different systems. What I really hope to see is that from the maintenance aspect of things, we start to see maybe a few more credentials and stuff that come out that give us that substantialness in the industry. Demands a bit more, money on that aspect of things for just the general populace. We take care of the maintenance and the physical being of a property, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars profit that has some meaning to it. So I would hope to see that in what we're growing to do, especially like the career development committee and everything like that, is develop those classes to get people interested in the industry more than just going in for a job, but looking for that career growth aspect, because we do have that. I definitely hope we see something. CAMP is the certified apartment maintenance technician. That is a very good entry level. I would say within your first 3 to 4 years, you would definitely want to get in there and take that aspect of that. We need something else for like the supervisors who have been doing it for a little while. That's a little bit more leadership based. So that way we can show, yes, we can go on to an 800 unit community and have a team of 20 people and prove that we can manage and help lead that team's success. I think that's where we're going. I think maintenance definitely is becoming not just this invisible industry that's out there now. I think we're getting more and more recognition. And as the pay goes up, more people are interested in it. Our industry, I think, is getting to that point where maintenance is being more recognized. I definitely still think it has a large jump. And I don't want pay to be about everything, but I definitely say like in the industry where it's a skilled labor, and I think maintenance is a skilled labor, it definitely has to get up there in that recognition and stuff, because in the end, when you see what we do to save money and to actually just create money and stuff is like insane.
Jake, centralization is a hot topic in the industry currently. I want to get your take on this word, this concept, and tell me, do you think it's just a buzzword? Is it a real thing? Is it somewhere in between, a combination of these two? How do you see centralization in maintenance, in multifamily maintenance?
Yeah, it's weird. I see centralization working well in certain circumstances, but in the grand scheme of things, it might take a little bit of personality in the closeness that we have in our teams into our property, where you're not so tied down to like one thing where you know all the residents' names and stuff. I think on a small scale, it's going to be good. I think on a big scale, I'm going to be interested to see where it goes. It might be the new way, but I'm leaning more on buzzword right now. The time will tell. I think honestly, in the end, it's gonna be what the money comes down to, right? Is if properties are saving money and they're getting a quality product because of that. I mean, we've seen other companies like Epic over in this area where I think they employ, and I'm speaking very lightly on this, I think they employ like a maintenance personnel to the property to take care of like odds and ends, but for like their unit turns and stuff like that, they're just like, they've completely hired out a company to take care of all the turns and stuff, which I don't see how that necessarily is making a lot of money, or how it's expensive. 18 to $2,000 usually for like basic turns and stuff. So there's a lot of change on the forefront of what is going through on the maintenance side of things right now. I think they're just trying to figure it out. Sadly, I think that's just because the trade skills and stuff like that I don't think it is, but it feels like a dying breed. It's harder to find people that want to get in there. But I think we're starting to see a little bit of that change coming, where people are wanting to find that more hands-on experience.
You mentioned something very interesting with a company that basically outsources most of their maintenance. I think that in part, one of the reasons why companies tend to do that is the shortage of qualified personnel. How do you see us as an industry overcoming these shortages? Like, to me, these shortages are here to stay. I don't think that, we're going to have a resolve within our lifetimes, really. I just think that businesses in general will grow at a rate higher than the population grows. Again, this is worldwide. It's not just US. It's not just multifamily. It's a general statement. Therefore, there's always going to be a fight over talent, and especially qualified talent. And maintenance, it's a very qualified situation here, because we're not just talking about knowing. For example, an HVAC technician needs to be good at HVAC. A maintenance technician has to be good at over average at HVAC, electrical, plumbing, carpentry, 5, 6, 7 trades, appliance repairs. When, a technician that's an appliance repair technician only needs to be good at appliance repairs. So it makes it even more difficult to find that rounded, seasoned, experimented individual professional that we can hire, we can have them join our team. What are some solutions that you see for us as an industry to attract qualified talent, and not just qualified, even, young people that, want to learn?
I think it's going to be marketing. I don't think we do enough of it. It's funny. We were just talking at once about reaching out to some of the high schools and stuff. So actually hitting where kids are coming out of high school before they ever reach the college, they're deciding, so it's like, I think for the leasing side of it, there was a DECA program they have going, which is pretty cool, where they're, for the young professionals. I think we just have to market our industry, because there's credentials that go along with being like a plumber or an electrician or something like that. Unions tend to talk about it more. I think it kind of has a bit more of that level of marketing, but we just have to get out there and we have to push our industry. And I think that's going to take all of us. And it's like why I appreciate what you're doing with kind of the national committee for the Multifamily X. It's like we as a team all over the place have to start saying this everywhere, so it becomes more of a thing. I hope the rest of the world gets on it too, but at least for now, right now within the United States, we have a pretty good power. I think NAA does a really good job of kind of bringing us together on that aspect of things. So it's going to take a lot of the big dogs in the industry in all the different areas and all the different states to be collectively talking like we are, to start pushing our industry it's a career. You can make a good wage. It's not like other industries and stuff. And you can leave high school and you don't have to go to college to do this. It doesn't hurt if you go to college, and you can go to college and get into it, and it will pay for your student loans. It's an industry that really has treated me very well. So I'm passionate on it in that sense. It's just how do we get that passion, and how do we show people the passion for this job? I'm not quite sure yet, but I definitely think we have to figure that part out. I think it's reaching out to the younger generations and stuff coming out of high school. I think that seems like getting it at the bud, getting it right there in the very beginning, making our industry seem more lavish. Everybody wants to be in the technology thing because you hear about the high wages and it's you get to work from home and all that. We just need to make our industry seem lavish. And I think it's lavish because of the flexibility that we have within our schedules. A lot of people come back and they have jealousy, and you get to say you get to take vacation, or there's all the different things that we get to do in a day, and people we get to meet and relationships we get to build. We got to get that out there.
Jake, speaking of the future now, what trends do you see shaping the future of multifamily maintenance, and how can maintenance professionals prepare for these changes?
I think one of the big topics everybody's talking about is AI. And I'm actually kind of really excited. I'm thinking about this right now, and I haven't actually tried to ask ChatGPT how to fix a GE washing machine yet if it's making this noise. Maybe it's along those levels where we have those AI things that you can just a maintenance AI where you can say, this is the problem I'm having, and this is the noise it's making, and having those abilities for us to really make that entry for training and stuff a lot easier. A lot of the training we have to do is on site and kind of hands on. So having the ability to have somebody guide you, that would be pretty cool. But I think AI is going to be pretty interesting. I never fear the robots taking over and doing our job because there's so many variables. I don't know the possibility yet with our current technology. I think AI is going to be the next big thing, even for maintenance, just on how repairs are done, everything like that. Or, even down to ordering and stuff. It's like the smart home where you take a breaker off of the shelf and it automatically reorders you one because there's a weight sensor. I think eventually we get to that technology, but that all costs cash. And that's important for everybody.
And now a word from Sean Landsberg, co-founder and CEO, AppWork.
Tell me a little bit about data integrity. How does AppWork rank in data integrity? We all know that, what you put in comes out, right? So if the information that you put in is not accurate, is not representing the reality, whatever comes out as data is really not accurate. So how do you fare in data integrity?
It's not just about the information that you put in. The information that comes out is only as good as the information that you put in, but it's also the fact that someone actually has to manually input a lot of that data. So for us, there's two things. Number one is, just about all the data that we're collecting, it happens through the normal course of using our product. Right. So no one's actually going in and manually adding information that we're then using in reporting, analytics, or anything like that. So all the data that we're presenting is actually not done manually. So it takes out just one less thing that people have to do. It makes using the product a lot easier. But it also removes that whole component where people can influence the data. So everything, even take something as simple as, a technician's callback. That's a metric that comes directly from the residents, where there's no way anybody, especially the technician, can influence that. Same thing with the ratings.
Jack, we're just talking about the shortage of qualified personnel in maintenance. How about the ones that are actually new to multifamily maintenance? What type of advice would you have for those that are just starting their career in multifamily maintenance?
Get involved way soon. Join your WMFAs and your NAAs and join a committee wherever you can. Accelerate that. Get your credentials, because there are credentials out there for maintenance and those do matter. Just there, you can grow quickly. So our industry has sometimes incredible growth, which can also be detrimental. So I would say on that end, don't be afraid to ask questions and don't be afraid to take advice or criticisms on that sense of things. And just hang in there, because you honestly within 5 years can get yourself a very decent wage. Ride the wave. Find somebody who is trustworthy that you can follow and, ride the wave up. Your relationships are always going to take you farther, and find that mentor somebody if you've been in it for a while.
Jake, let's talk misconceptions. What are the most common misconceptions that you hear from others that don't have any multifamily maintenance experience, from outside looking in what we do on a daily basis?
Sometimes I feel like I think that's part of the problem why we don't have skilled people, is because I don't know that people have any opinions about it, good nor bad sometimes. And sometimes I feel like it's like, oh, you do property management. And then all of a sudden they start running at what you do. And they're like, oh, wait, you're responsible for how many units? And they're like, wait, you're responsible for doing X, Y, and Z. And you're like, yeah, we have to make sure all the money goes in the bank. We have to do it's an actual job. It's not just it's not like you're just kind of go. I mean, I think I felt from people in the past that it kind of feels like a McDonald's job. It's just you're kind of there doing a job and then you go home. But it's no, we're managing assets. It's like a business professional world. It's weird because it's like white collar and blue collar at the same time, which is kind of funny. I just don't know that enough people have a perspective, because I don't think people really know what our industry is about. And I'll reflect back to what I say is none of us, I think, ever knew we were going into property management and that it was going to be, it was not something. I knew I wanted to be in property as a broker or something like that, but I didn't know it was going to end up being this per se, which is funny because now I look back and if I could tell anyone, no, get into the industry. It's fantastic. So I think it's the lack of opinion that sometimes I think is interesting.
Jake, how important is networking for you? Do you see any benefits in doing that? And if you do share some practical examples of how networking has benefited you.
Yeah, networking is your resources and who you can call will make your career, and honestly, just it's a life lesson. Building relationships and networking is insane. So through Greystar, for this example, just to be on this podcast, it was just insane. By doing your job well, I was able to make friends with my maintenance regional, Dave Went, who then was friends with Alex Watts, who's the maintenance director for Greystar. And as I was leaving to come over to take care of this project, Alex Watts is like, hey, I've got to introduce you to somebody. I'm on it right now, but I have to take off. But let me introduce you to Adrian, because he's a really cool guy. He has all this big stuff going, this regional committee. And he's like, I think you would be great for it. So it's funny that the friends you make and the resources and the connections along the way end up just taking you down these paths that I honestly never thought in a day I'd be sitting here doing a maintenance podcast, to be honest. But it's funny that when you open up and you start talking and making those friendships, where that, those rivers trickle down to.
Let's talk about people that have influenced you. Could you please name the person, the individual that made the most positive impact in your life and your career? And if you have one for life and one for career in particular, you could name two of them.
Career-wise, I 100% know it was Bill Clemens, and he worked down at, I think it's now called The Dock, but it was Surprise Lake Village. I was owned by Equity at the time. That was early 2006. I was out of work. I was doing electrical, actually, and that's kind of when the economy was crashing. So I was a bit of a gamer nerd, so I was sitting playing World of Warcraft, and one of the maintenance guys was like, hey, he knocked on the door, and he's like, I don't mean to be creepy, but he's like, I saw that you've been kind of sitting here playing. And he's like, what are you playing? And he's like, so I told him, and it kind of created this opening, and we started chatting. He's like, oh yeah, I played the game too. And he's like, you should come down and meet the property. He also plays. So it ended up to the point where I getting a job with Equity because of that, and that's what got me actually into the industry. But Bill was a fantastic gentleman. He's definitely by far, he's like a brother to me now. My birthday was just last week, and we were just chatting that we've known each other now for close to 20 years. He's just been there, and I've worked with him, and he's one of those people, and it's where I've definitely learned from, where you can be friends with somebody and you can work with somebody and understand there's a difference between Jake at work and Jake at home. There's things at work that for the business has to be done, and you can have those arguments and you can have those, but then you can still go home and love each other or be friends with however you want. and still have that friendship and not be bothered by it. Having that level of friendship and that stability as a leader definitely led to a lot of where I'm at now. It's just because there's certain things I have to ask you to do doesn't mean I think any less of you or anything like that. He definitely, I would say, and he's just everything that you would ask for in a manager. Just he sacrifices his time to make sure that the team is going forward and everything like that. Personally, my grandfather, as much as that sounds cheesy, he just like his aspect on life was just very much like just very good, just driven forward, always kind of wanted to do the big things in life and stuff like that. He was a very successful carpenter and a superintendent for big jobs. He won accolades and stuff like that and awards for concrete use. So just seeing that and being able to go by and see some of these buildings that my family built and they're still sitting there today. And my great grandfather was working on he was a superintendent for the Seattle Convention Center when they built the freeway park there. And they were telling the stories of when they were pouring the concrete over the freeway. Like nowadays, it would never happen. You'd have to shut down the freeway, but they're literally pouring concrete while cars were driving underneath the Seattle Convention Center. Hearing those stories and stuff like that, some of that stuff was just like, it makes you want to drive because like that stuff's still there today. You can still go put your hands on it. It's like these permanent structures, it's like a lot of the buildings I've been to are still standing and stuff. And I like to know that I've left my touch on them and stuff too, hopefully for the best in most of the cases.
Jake, can you share one success story or a impactful moment from your work in the multifamily industry? What was the most impactful moment?
I think there's been a few, but the most recent that just really sticks out, I would definitely say it was my previous property, West Edge, the one that really it just really sticks out because it was definitely a test and trial because everything was going crazy with COVID. It was a challenging time with some of the managers that were there. And there was a lot of movement on the managers during the 4 years that I was at West Edge, which is a 40-story high rise in downtown Seattle. It's a beautiful property. And it was in its fourth year when I left. It was in great shape, but it was enduring the manager changeover and the fact that we didn't have a manager at the time. So it was like, I was also, because I have the skill set to just take care of whatever needs to be done at the time. I don't want to say I was managing it because I wasn't, because our regional map was like 100% helping out on that aspect of things. It was being on site and being like the only like supervisor or manager on site that could really make things and the team connect. That I would say was a challenge. I wouldn't give it up because it definitely gave me grit and gave me that access. Luckily, we had a lot of money at that property. So it was just one of those things where it was like, just keep the team happy. So it was like, we got to do a lot of fun things. Like we got to go out to lunch and you got to go to sushi lunches and stuff like twice a month. And it was like all this stuff that we really got to just build this really tight team. I think that was like one of the most impactful and it really kind of pushed me up and above the edge to let people know kind of who I was and what I was about. That I could adapt to any role at any time just to make sure that the business is going. Because again, it's like I'm here, I'm paid to work for the company, even though I have a title. If there's still a job that needs to be done, whether it's picking up trash, running a compactor, talking to a resident, leasing a unit, or managing or having a conversation with an employee, it's like we're still all there to like, you have to know when to stay in your lane, but you also have to know when to veer into other people's lanes when needed. That property set me up successfully for that, I would say.
Jake, what plans do you have for the future in a multifamily industry? What the future looks like for Jake? For the ideal future, what do you want it to look like?
My goal, and it's the tall dream, but we're pushing towards it right now, is I would love to just be driving around from property to property as like an asset manager. I would love to just be going to find properties. I would love to eventually own my own properties, to hire people. I want to treat people well. I want to be that beacon in the industry where we're paying people what they're worth. We're driving forward that aspect. And I want to make that company that can prove that we can do everything. You can make an ownership a lot of, and I want to be that owner too that can do that aspect of things. So we're actually hopefully here pretty close to making our first purchase on the property. So I'm kind of excited. It's not going to be anything super crazy, probably 6 to 10 units, but it's kind of our goal. I'll always work. I love, like, honestly, there's nothing more satisfying than working and bringing home something to the family. I want to build an environment for people to go, whether that will be my own company or we just own them. Like, honestly, it might be more fun just to drive around the properties and find something and have somebody else manage them on that aspect and be involved. That's where I want to be, building something that I can put my words to because I speak it. I just don't want to speak words. Everybody speaks words all day long. I want to prove that it's possible. And that's kind of my goal. And like, that's what I'm driven to do right now.
Jake, it's been great having you on today at the Masters of Maintenance. Any final thoughts, anything that you wish you would have said during the conversation you didn't have the opportunity to say, or maybe answer a question you wish I would have asked?
No, I think we covered a lot of it, which was great. I appreciate it. They were some pretty good thoughtful questions, so I appreciate it. I just look forward to see where we go on the Multifamily X part of things. I look forward to see where our industry goes, where it's going right now. I think everybody can feel it because there's change in our industry, and I'm really excited to see what's going on. There's chatter about it everywhere, to be honest. I would just say anybody who's not in the industry, who's looking for something new, like jump in. It's fantastic.
Jake, how can someone watching or listening to this episode get in touch with you? How they can get a hold of you if they want to contact you?
Right now, if you want to get a hold of me, email would be best. It would be jakes@thrivecommunities.com, or you can use my personal email if it's not business related, which is bstraight3@live.com. I am always available. I think a lot of the guys, my cell phone number is out there for people on the committee and everything like that. Reach out. I'm always more than willing. I think any knowledge we can share, that's the most important thing. So I'm always willing. Every step we take up, we should be lifting up 3 people behind us. My goal is to help anybody I can with any, good knowledge.
Jake Straight, thank you for being a guest today. Thank you for a great conversation. I hope to get you back here down the road, 6 months, a year down the road. I like to do another episode to see what progress looks like in your career. And I'm here to cheer you up for you. I'm rooting for you.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I'm super excited to see where this goes. This is a good thing, Adrian. Thank you for taking the lead on that. We need people like you.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you for your kind words. I also want to thank our sponsors from Kairos and Upwork for making this broadcast possible. I'm Adrian Daniela, your host, signing off. And until next time, take care. Have an amazing day.